Hi, I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder and CEO of the Bobby White Foundation. That was a short countdown.
That was a very short countdown.
And
I'm Bonnie Snyder. Welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. You know, I'm not going to ask what was. So we talk a lot about things that you guys don't see, that happens on the set, and we're just sitting here watching the intro and. Next thing you know, we hear 3, 2, 1.
Usually we get a 10.
So, but it's all good.
But hey, we still want to thank Rob, our tech guy, because otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here. And our producer, John, from Area 52 Media. It doesn't roll off my mouth as easily yet. But for allowing us this platform to come to you, even sometimes it's kind of silly, which is good because we deal with a difficult subject. So it's good to be light every once in a while.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think for me anyway, this is kind of like half the fun because we have the off-camera shenanigans, and sometimes they blend into, all right, ladies, calm it down. You're on, you're live now, or, we're you're filming now, like, chill out. So, and then the shenanigans go on even when we're like in the midst of filming, like, really, guys, what are you doing to us?
Oh, it kind of just goes with the way the whole week has gone. I think. I still got that tickle from that COVID. I wish it would go away. I don't know if you remember a few months ago, well, at the beginning of the summer, I was talking about my signs getting, my positive signs getting busted up. And so we had all summer, everything was good because the young gentlemen were grounded. So the other night, I'm on the phone, or other afternoon, I'm on the phone with my neighbor, and she's like, there's 3 teenagers walking down the street, one with a skateboard. And I'm like, oh, really? Which way are they going? So it's probably headed to 7-Eleven. I'm like, oh, okay. A couple hours later, I go out to leave. One of my signs is completely gone. And I have signs up on my fence that say, this area is under surveillance. Well, as of this afternoon, it will be under surveillance for real. So I posted it in our Golden Acres chat because they're kids from the neighborhood. And I had said that, I'm done. I just can't do this. Well, everybody's like, oh, Tammy, don't stop doing the signs, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to go ahead and make more signs, but cameras are going up. But, it's just frustrating because, I explained everything to the parents and the children the first time at the beginning of summer, what this was about. And the boys never even read the signs. One of the signs, and one of the ones that was taken this time, says, be a buddy, not a bully. And, because suicide in children and teens, young adults, it's like number 2 or 3 for deaths, depending on which statistic that you look at, is because of bullying. And I explained to them about the foundation and Bobby and the teen situation. So I guess now I'm going to have to go on and probably further explain to the neighborhood chat so that everybody understands what this is really about. Several other parents reached out and said, I read these signs to my kids every time we drive by, or I read these to my teenagers. So they want them to continue, but it's like, okay, if these are your teens walking through the neighborhood, maybe have a little talk with them.
And for me, I look at it, even a little broader in that, it's about the signs, it's about the message, but it's also about, respecting the property of others.
Exactly.
When I think of, why do, certain people react, negatively, teens being bullied. well, what about, adults who are also bullied? I
Yeah,
don't think,
it doesn't stop at kids. That's
no,
for sure.
it doesn't. And I think what some people may not, like when we process, this whole concept of bullying, I think the majority of the times we think of school children on a schoolyard getting bullied.
Right.
And, we don't consider that, children are bullied by children. Children are bullied by adults. Adults are bullied by adults. Adults are bullied by children. And so that's not it's not like a one size fits all, or this group will only bully this group.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
And so so I look at it from the from that broader sense of not that I would put everything on a hierarchy, but if I were to put things on a hierarchy, look, it's about your satisfaction, and the feeling you get out of putting these positive signs up, because it's it's a comfort.
Yeah, I mean it's as much for me really as it is for you out there.
Right, and then
know?
then you have, okay, so I want this. I'm getting this positive message out. This is kind of the way that I'm dealing with my loss. Then it's okay if somebody else sees it. If they're not dealing with a loss, maybe they're dealing with something, either traumatic or difficult in their life. And I see this sign, it's like, oh, that's just what I needed to see.
Exactly, and I've had that response.
Yeah.
I've actually only, for the most part, had one person say, oh, teenagers will be teenagers and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, now, wait a minute here. I said, I was a kid once, too. I said, but I would never have thought of damaging somebody else's property or stealing somebody else's property as I'm walking by their house. It just wasn't a concept. Number one, we live in a small town, and it's the same way in our neighborhood too. But number one, I wouldn't even think about it. But if I did, per se, I would have got whooped, because my parents would have found out one way or the other. It's just not right, and it's not right giving excuses to these kids. And the same thing happens when the kids wreck on our street, and the parents every single time have an excuse for their children instead of making their children take responsibility.
I think there's, I have a love-hate relationship with the, teenagers are being teenagers, boys are being boys, girls are being girls, where, guys, on one level, it is, they're a teenager. This is not behavior that, or this is behavior that you would expect to see out of a teenager. I get that piece of it. But the other side of it is, to your point, I can be a teenager and not destroy somebody else's property. I can be a teenager, or just because I'm a teenager doesn't mean that I'm not going to experience things that people think, teenagers do not experience. I think of, when I consider, my grandchildren, for example. One of my grandchildren is my daughter's third oldest child. When she was like 12, 13, I'm having a conversation with her. And for a minute, as we're having this conversation, I completely forgot that she was a teenager. And you're like, how could you forget she was a teenager? Because she's very philosophical. I mean, do you want to have a really, intense, deep, intellectual conversation? This is this is a child that you would have that conversation with. And so I'm looking at, I'm processing. Teenagers are going to be teenagers, here's this. I'm like, I looked at her one time and I was like, are you sure you're only at one? She was 12 at the time. I looked at her and I was like, I keep forgetting that you're 12. Why then? I was like, I'm having this conversation with you, and it's like, I'm having a better conversation with you than I am with. And I think, it's, when I think of times that I have, whatever the conversation is with, whether it's my teenage grandchildren or, the youth that I work with in my daily work, part of it is, providing them with the information in terms of, respecting boundaries. That here, new groups have started, for me, and I was talking to them about, self-image. One of the places I was at yesterday, these children, the behaviors that you're seeing with your signs, is the behavior that you would expect out of this group, these groups
Right.
of kids that I'm working with now. And I looked at myself, let's talk about this for a moment. And a lot of it has to do with, and when one of my guys looked at me and he says, it's because they don't have good parents at home. And I looked at him and I'm like, tell me more about, one of those phrases that we were taught in school. Tell me more about that. And, he goes on, to tell, to share a little bit about his story. And I'm like, okay, thank you for sharing, but at the same time, it's like, if you're talking to these parents and you're telling them this is what it's about, and the behavior is continuing, I have to ask myself, I process. The parents look at you, I understand. What are the parents saying to the children? So, for me, it's like, look, your children destroyed by signs, I appreciate if they didn't, this is what the signs are about, okay. What, I would hate to believe that these parents are going back home. It's like, they're just signs, guys. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, with the first incident, I know it was not that way. The parents, they stepped up right away. One lives right around the corner from me, and both of the boys were grounded for the entire summer and were not allowed to walk past our properties. And nothing happened. And I could tell genuinely with both sets of parents when I was, because I was talking to the parents and the children at the same time and explaining, telling them the whole thing. And I could tell the young boys felt really, really bad when they found out, why the signs
But
are
the
made.
behavior continued.
Well, not from them.
Okay.
It's not actually. The one parent commented, "It wasn't mine this time. They were at their mother's." So, but it could be there were a couple others that were in this group, and so it could come out of that part of it. But I really don't believe it is the same young men. But anyways, so hopefully, I wasn't going to, and everybody was like, oh, well, put cameras up and do this. And I'm like, okay, people, but it cost me money to make the signs. I got to put out money to put cameras up to protect my signs. These are your kids that are doing this. And it's costing me money more than anticipated if I want you, and you want me to continue to do it. But it's all right. It'll be done. So, and I'll continue to make the signs. But it just, I don't know. I guess maybe I take it a lot personally. Probably more personally than I should. But it's the reason behind it is, for me, is why. But anyways, and we were talking about the kids with bullying. There's a organization around here. Oh man, I know I'm going to get this wrong. I think it's Heroes in Action, and the guy who runs it, Ray, he has a program for kids about bullying and self-defense and stuff. He also has a podcast called Taboo Talk with Stephen Ray. And he heard me talk a couple weeks ago at Trinity Positive. It was like a quick thing. I didn't even know I was going to be speaking, and they didn't have a speaker. And the guy who ran the meeting comes up to me, Tammy, can you talk for 10 minutes? And I was like, yeah, okay. So he heard me speak, and then he came up and invited me to be on this podcast. And I think it was Tuesday. I didn't know it was live, but it streams live on Tuesdays, I think around 2:30. But it is available on their website, on Facebook and YouTube, Taboo Talk with Stephen Ray. And I was on there talking about the foundation and the show, and basically it was taboo talk about suicide. They talk about the hard things that people don't want to talk about, and so that's what I did this week. So, and it was good. It was a good experience. I haven't gone back and rewatched it yet. I started to, and I was like, oh, don't have time, gotta go. It's kind of like watching our own show, you know. So,
Yeah, I don't. I think that's a Wednesday or Tuesday that I've watched our show back. It's weird watching yourself, you know. But then I critique myself, like, all right.
I know, I do too.
You know, I had somebody ask me today, you know, about the show. I was in my office before I came here, which is weird. You know, when I walk into the office on a Friday, there's several people who, you know, Friday is their quote unquote office day.
Right.
And so when I walk into the office Friday, you know, I always get the, "What are you doing here?" That's my desk. It's like,
I do work here.
well, you know, and it's interesting, you know, because I think some of them, when I walk in, they were like, you know, like, again, why are you here? And, you know, I'm senior staff, so it's like, you know, are you here to check? No, guys, I just got some stuff I need to do. So you guys need to understand, no, I'm not usually here on Fridays, but I'm here today. So, but anyway, I walked out. But as I was, you know, leaving, one of the team members, you know, I'm like, okay, guys, you know, I'm headed out, you know, get ready to go to the studio, you know, yada, yada. And one guy was like, tell me about the show. And I was like, my brain just automatically thinks Facebook. It's like, oh, go to Facebook. It was on Facebook. And he was like, I don't have Facebook. And I was like, well, go here, go here, go here, go here. You know, so I think that's a good reminder, you know, to remind people that there are other ways to access the show besides Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
And,
well, they can access it through both of our Facebook pages, the Foundation and the show's Facebook page. They can access it through the Bobby White Foundation website, YouTube. There's like 6 or 7.
There's 6 or 7. I mean, yeah.
And I haven't said them often enough to remember what the rest of them are. But John, they stream on like 7 different, which I'll get that list again and get it straight. I know he was switching one of them from one thing to another. But yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways that you can see the show, and see all 78 shows if you want.
Yeah, so I looked at it and I was like, yeah, well, just do this. And I was like, I'll send it to you. And, you know, as I'm walking out the door. Yeah, this has been, you know, I was sitting back, you know, like I said, sitting at my desk, doing some paperwork before I came here. And, you know, I was just struck by how many different events have gone on this month to get, you know, the word out. You know, or to address, you know, this this particular subject, you know.
And it's continuing through October.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you know, I want to reach out to 18 Forever and, you know, invite them to the show. You know, invite her to the show and say, hey, would you mind, you know, coming on and, you know, talking about that? It's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a couple, and some of them I've reached out to before, but. Next Saturday, October 1st, is Pasco County's Out of the Darkness Walk. I think the following Saturday is Pinellas County's Out of the Darkness Walk. And then pretty much the whole first week of October, Pasco County Parks and Recs has all their events going on. They have a bowling tournament, Strikeout Suicide. They have the, Strike the Stigma. And you really need to jump on these too, because I just received an email and some of them are full, like Kitten Yoga is full. There's a waiting list. So I'm going to see if I can sneak into that one. I think the bowling one is getting close to being filled up, and they still have some room for runners and walkers. And if you want to do this, I mean, that park with Lacoochee River Park is beautiful.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it is out in Timbuktu, but it's a beautiful place out there. So yeah, there's yeah, there's just
A lot of stuff
a
going
lot
on.
of stuff going on, which is good. Even outside of the suicide realm that we deal with most of the time, Tuesday is another organization that we belong to, Bowling for Boobs, is their big event, and it's the first time we've been able to have that event also in a couple of years. And so, yeah, it just, everybody's like raring to get back in and do stuff. So, and at the Pasco County Out of the Darkness Walk, I am one of the speakers this year for that event. So if you want to come out, the foundation will have a table there. Are you guys having a table there?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm tabling for ASAP. Yeah.
So that'll be good. That'll be good. So, are we gonna try and get back to our book?
We should. We should.
I think we were like around chapter 14 or something.
So, guys, just as a recap, our book is How to Carry What Can't Be Fixed. You see it up there on the screen. You can follow along there. We're past chapter 14. We're on I think we did 15.
Yeah, that
friends, allies.
that QR code is still good. You can still get the book from Amazon, and a tiny portion of the proceeds will go to the foundation. And if you do smile.amazon.com anyways and choose the Bobby White Foundation as your charity of choice, everything that you purchase, pretty much a tiny portion, will be donated to the foundation.
Yeah, I think we might be in chapter 15 right now, friends, allies, and asking for help. Because I think we got past 14. Yeah, interesting when we skip the book and we're like, oh, wait a minute, this is where we were and whatnot. And if not, I mean, chapter 15 is a good review. At least that's where my notes are, is in chapter 15 right now. So
Yeah, and there's a page in here that I am going to copy and put up on the on all the Facebook pages. The How to Help, what is it? The How to Help Me pamphlet.
mm-hmm.
So, friends and allies and asking for help. I know asking for help is hard for most people.
Some people.
Some people. Most people.
Some people.
Well, I guess, I'm one of those some people, or most people.
Yeah, here's the thing with why I say some people, and again, I we joke about this a lot. I think more therapeutically than you, but then it's the nature of that's kind of my work. That's my work. But no, I think for some people, asking for help is extremely difficult, and I want to say the issue for that is I think sometimes people don't know what they need help with. The other side of it is I may know what I want, I don't know how to ask for it, or I'm not, sure, I'm not sure of the how, I'm not sure of the what. At the same time, there is also that feeling of I don't want to be indebted to anybody on one hand, or I don't want to be considered a burden or a bother. And so, or sometimes it's a mixture of all of that. So, when we look at, asking for help, sometimes for other people, when we see a person that is struggling or that might be going through stuff, how do we ask them, hey, what do you need? What I feel sometimes is people are put off when it's like, what do you need? I don't know. Well, when you figure it out, let me know. When, I like this first line that she has in there. She goes, while it's true that some people can be utter jerks, some people really do want to help. And, what I, find where the utter jerks is, hey, how can I help you? I don't know, or I don't need help. Or when you figure it out, come and let me know.
Right.
To me, that's the, to quote the word
Right.
she used, that's, the jerky part of it. When we're going through a struggle, regardless of what the struggle is, sometimes, we're so busy processing what is going on that we don't know.
Well, we don't know, and like you said, we don't know what to ask for
Right.
or how to ask for it. She says here, even, and the people want you. They want us to be okay. But if, yet when you're in the midst of that, it's hard. She says here, you don't need advice, though. You don't need solutions. You don't need to be cheered up. You need someone to see your grief, to acknowledge it. You need someone to hold your hand while you stand there in the blinking horror, staring at the hole that was your life. Basically, it boils down to companionship. To
Right, and she
being
said,
there.
right, and
Yeah.
that very next line is companionship is everything. Because I notice with, when I look at how different people have processed their respective losses, in the beginning, I think with the good portion of us, or a lot of us, in the beginning, it was like, I need to be alone for a moment. But it was also in that aloneness that it was like, I need to be alone, but I don't want to be alone. And trying to reconcile that too, where it's like, all right, you know what? It wasn't so much, and for me, I had to play it from both sides in terms of, I want to be alone, but I really didn't want to be alone. I was, telling people, like my coworkers, let's bring you, we're going to bring you food. What's your address? I'm going to bring you food. And in my head, I was like, I don't want you at my house.
Right.
And I don't mean that in a negative way, because
Right.
I love, the team that I work on. We're a very close knit team, so I don't want to, throw any negative perceptions out there. But in my head, I was like, I don't want you at my house right now. I don't want you here. Like, we don't, we're work buddies, where we get along at work, but I don't hang out at your house, you don't hang out at my house. I don't know where you live. Why do you need to know where I live? But then I had to, the side of it, I had to process, okay, look, they're trying to help. Because, as this one team member said, she was like, I'm bringing you food. And I'm like, I'm not hungry. The last thing I wanted to think about was food. But then, she was like, you need to eat. You need to keep your strength up. You need to eat. And, basically, if I have to, jokingly, if I have to shove this food down your throat, you're going to eat it, kind of thing. And, in my head, I'm like, but I don't want to eat. And, when she came over, she was like, what do you want? And, so she brought me over, something light. It was like a wrap or something, very light, small wrap. And as I'm sitting down and I'm, she's like, you're going to eat, at least one. And, there were some, the little wraps you get from Dunkin' Donuts. They're small. And so I'm like, choking back tears, because this is right after I found out. And so I ate, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I talk about this now. It's like, I really appreciate that, because it's like I wouldn't have thought about eating, or, the basic things that you just do instinctually. Oh, I'm hungry. Let me eat something. Let me eat some food. Where when you're wallowing, I said wallowing, when you're dealing with grief and loss, I don't want to eat. And then it's like, okay, I'm leaving now, and it was kind of like this tag team was going on, in and out of my house. Or, here's her address if she doesn't send it to you. And so at the end, when I sit back and I process it now, I'm like so grateful for that companionship. So throughout the day, it was like, this one had the morning shift, and I was like, okay, I'm going to the office. This next one had the afternoon shift, and then, this one had the early evening shift, until my nephew got there, and then I had my nephew through the night until I went to bed, and then somebody was tapping on my door first thing in the morning.
Well, and that's one thing that they say is you don't ask the person, what do you want? Because, like you said, oftentimes we think we don't want something, or we don't know what we want. Just say, hey, I'm going to do this for you. And do it. Don't ask, just do it. Because getting the response is going to be a whole lot tougher than just saying, hey, I'm going to do this for you, instead of just asking what the person wants. And she says here in this chapter, gives you tools to help out with that, make it a little easier. And she says here, asking for help isn't easy for most people. So there's an image on the next page to color, and I know you won't color in your book, but I will.
But she follows it up with brainstorming the practical and the wildly impractical. And where she says, be as wild or demanding as you'd like. Freely asking for everything here lets you discover things you might not think of if you're being entirely practical or trying to need too much. And, I like this because, again, there are some things that we don't think of. I go back to, using myself as example, me and reminding myself that I need to eat, or reminding myself that, oh, by the way, you still need to take care of you. And if taking care of you means making sure you're eating, making sure, like one of my coworkers when I was there, she was like, if you need to take a nap, go take a nap, I'll still be here. And I'm thinking to myself, do I really, I don't really want to go to sleep, or should I go to sleep? What was the other one? Somebody else looked at me and said, have you taken your shower yet? Because I'm saying it's the next day. Have you taken your shower yet? And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, again, I'm thinking, have I taken, and when I think about it, when I get up in the morning, things just happen, without, what's the word I want to use? Naturally, we get up in the morning,
you have your routine.
Some of us, we have our daily routine that just happens without thinking about it.
Yeah.
You get up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you take a shower, you brush your teeth, you get dressed, you walk out the door. And, I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. Did I, have I been sitting on the couch all day, or, what did I do? You know what? Maybe a nice warm shower will, will help, or whatnot. So, like I said, I like where, just write down whatever comes to mind.
Well, yeah, she says just write down anything and everything, even the crazier the better. And she said, once you filled the page, go back through what you've written and circle things you can ask for when people say, how can I help? Maybe that will make it a little bit easier. And, most people do have good intentions. Or do you go back to some people have good? No, most people do have good intentions.
Most people have good intentions.
But when you're grieving, it's and I like this. But you're grieving. It's not like you have a lot of extra mental energy to educate people on how to support a grieving friend. You might not even know what you need. And how are you supposed to tell someone else?
Which is precisely my point.
That's what it's
precisely what I'm saying. You don't.
That's
sometimes
exactly
you
it.
don't know.
Right.
You just, it's not like, we'll use the example. Going in the hospital and having a surgery. Okay. When I think, I've had surgeries, major surgeries before. Coming out of surgery, I knew exactly what it is I needed. I needed somebody there to, help me move around. I needed somebody, to help me, I needed somebody over to feed me. I couldn't get out of bed, or, it hurt like the dickens to get out of bed. I needed somebody, to help me, as I was leaving the hospital, the doctors, the doctors, nursing staff, do you have someone else to assist you? And I'm like, yeah. Well, yeah, thankfully I have a daughter who's a CNA. But it's like, yeah, I have my daughter, she's a CNA, she'll know what to do, but it's like, okay, knowing I needed somebody to help me, get up, if I needed to go, to the bathroom. I needed somebody to help, to help prepare, to prepare my food. I needed somebody to, help me get into the shower and get out of the shower, So those were, hey, I need somebody to make sure that the remote control was close to, was close to my bed. With something like this, like she says, you don't know what you need.
Right. Well, and this is what I'm going to put up on the Facebook page, this little page here. It's broken into 3 sections. I don't know how to help, but I don't know what to say. I want to help my grieving friend. So I don't know how to help. Here are some specific requests from your grieving person. Ask about, or better yet, offer to do things that aren't on this list. Be sure to get permission before you take action. Set up a meal delivery, have groceries delivered, help with the take the trash out, walk the dog, house cleaning. About 3 months after losing Bobby, I severely broke my leg. And my neighbor paid to have somebody come and clean my entire house for me. Because, I couldn't. I probably couldn't do it in the state I was in prior to that, but with a broken leg, I certainly couldn't. And that felt so good, just having somebody clean my house. And I had a clean house. But there's a whole list of things on here. And if you don't know what to say, no one knows the perfect or the right thing to say to someone who's inside grief. There's no one perfect thing. Nothing you say or do will make someone's grief go away. And I like this. Grief isn't a problem to be solved. It's an experience to be tended. But you can say, something just, I'm sorry this is happening. Or I'm here and I'm listening. Or I like the last one, this sucks.
I think it's important, to, when you're thinking about, but I don't know what to say. Sometimes you can say things and be well-meaning. However, when you say it, it creates more grief and harm than what it's intended to do. Like I look at this where I have a love-hate thing with this, I'm sorry this is happening. Me, I might fire back with, you're sorry. Like what? Like you're sorry? I'm
the one living it,
right?
Yeah.
And we have when we go through our training, those of us that are on that therapeutic side of the field or side of the fence, there are those phrases that we're taught to say when someone's like, that was so difficult. And I remember my supervisor. I love my supervisor. Don't get me wrong. But afterwards, when I finally came back to work, I looked at her and I said, if I heard you say this must be difficult one more time, I said I want to throat chop you. And no, mind you, I don't believe in,
Right.
I'm not a violent person, and no, I would not throat chop my boss, but I'm like, I really wanted to throat chop you. Because it was, and I was mindful. I understood, don't get me wrong. I appreciate it, and, I couldn't thank her enough for, the support and everything that she did, and heck, I think I had the entire month off, I said, but at the same time, I don't want to hear it. This must be difficult. Again, like, if stop. Sometimes, the perfect thing to say is nothing.
It's nothing. Yeah, you can just be there with somebody, and that's what on this other side is one of the things. Just simply being supportive.
Right, where she says it's hard work supporting a grieving person. It's hard to see someone you love in so much pain, whether you're a casual acquaintance or an emergency contact level friend. This little guide will help you to deliver the love and support you most want to give. And I think, understanding, I like what she points out too, understanding what is your, for lack of a better word, relevance to the person that you're trying to help. Because, again, if I think of my circle of friends, just using them as an example, say my coworkers, as much as I love my coworkers and whatnot, I put them in that, casual, hey, you know what, I need you for some things. When it's like, the emergency contact, I know I can call them at midnight, and if their phones are on, they'll be over. That's that, the crew, as we guys, I call them the crew, because sometimes what I find is someone who's a casual contact will try and provide help that you think, I don't want to say, I hate to put it in terms of a worthiness, but it's like, I'm uncomfortable. Not me personally. I'm like, how much of a discomfort are you to that person if you are a casual outside friend and you're trying to do something that to their comfort level is something that they would only that they're more comfortable with somebody who's closer to them. I think that's another thing to be mindful of and to take into account.
Well, yeah, and on this other side, and which is true, our society, we're really not taught about grief or how to handle grief. And wasn't it when we were at Dr. Wolfeld's seminar, he said, because of getting away from how we used to deal with death years ago to how it's dealt with today, it's you're missing the process.
You are missing the process, and I think what I found, what's the word I'm looking for? Very interesting. I mean, that whole seminar was just amazing. But I looked at myself in terms of how we deal with like you said death and whatnot, and I want to say I remember him pointing that out, where if I think back to my youth, when I was in my elementary, preteen, I want to say teen, preteen years, when somebody passed away, funeral, very somber, everybody was in black, you were in your Sunday best, as they call it, there was the whole ritual went a certain way, and we knew, okay, so first they're going to do this, then they're going to do this, then they're going to do this, then they're going to do this. I remember the first time I went to Arkansas. My former father-in-law passed away, and my ex-husband, my children's dad, my first ex-husband. I got a couple. It was in the country. Now, mind you, I used to joke, with her, it's like, I'm a stupid city kid, and I was married to a guy from the country. Yeah, that was straight country, straight country. But, here we are at the gravesite, and, the guys have, like, loosened their ties and whatnot, and I'm watching them with the shovels dig the grave, and I'm like, the heck is going on here? And they were, sitting around, and, people were, drinking, like having, some people drinking beer, other people drinking, like hard stuff. And, it was just like, what's the phrase, yucking it up, as they're digging, this grave. And I'm like, I've never seen anything like it. I'm like, wow. Then fast forward, to when I was in Kansas, and, a family member, second marriage, family member passed away, and somebody walks off into the funeral home, flip flops, and somebody came in and cut off shorts and flip flops and whatnot, and I'm like, this is really strange. Never seen anything like that. Or another friend, when the young girl, she was killed in a car crash. And her mom came to the service that we were having for her, and she had on this bright red dress, this like really, red dress. And, as we were, talking about, this, girl, and oh my God, love this child. someone had said to her, you know, Letitia would be very happy to see you in that red dress. That red was her favorite color. And, I got to looking at, it's more, things have become more, less, somber, funeral, like dark, dreaded, granted nobody likes doing a funeral, to where they're not necessarily called funerals anymore. It is now celebration of life. We don't, use the term, funeral anymore. It is, a homegoing,
Right.
or something like that. And I found, or I find that by making it more of a celebration, it takes the edge off of, well, this is, like celebration of life. Why are you celebrating the fact that this person is gone? Not celebrating.
You're not celebrating
the fact that the person is gone. You're celebrating the fact that this person was with you
that
for a really long
lived.
time. that they were with you.
Exactly. Well, and that's like when we lost Bobby, and he never wanted a funeral. And we had a barbecue in our backyard, and there were tons of people. We had a barbecue and a bonfire, and people came out and sat around and drank beer and ate tons of food. And I mean, my place was packed, and it was funny because my mom, she came down for it, and she immediately wanted me to move back to Washington State. But when she saw what happened that day, she was like, okay, I get it, and it made it a whole lot easier on me. But thankfully, it's kind of not the right word to say, his parents had both passed away because they were Catholic, and I don't know that I would have been able to get away with that if his mom was alive.
Well, and I look at this, it's not, it's not about them, per se. But, the other thing that she puts in here where she goes, I want to make them feel better, where she says, unfortunately, no matter how good your intentions are, cheering someone up doesn't work or won't work. In fact, trying to do so can make your friend feel worse. And, again, hey, cheer up, those cliches that are used. They're in a better place. This was God's plan. It gets better with time and whatnot. And again, I know we've said this a billion times here on the show. When we lost Aiden, and I said to Kira, I don't think I said he's in a better place, but it's like we'll get through this, time will heal this, That's the stupidest stuff that came out of my mouth, No, it's not necessarily that I disagree with, especially the one where, time heals all wounds. I think, I feel over time, we become more, for lack of a better word, comfortable in the new normal without the person that's lost. We learn to continue living even though the person that's not with us, that person is not with us anymore.
We learn to integrate the change.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
and it's not, it's integrating it and including it.
It's adopting, it's adopting, that's not, when I go in, like when I walk in my house, I look up, there are times where I find almost, I don't want to say a guilt, but there are times where it is a guilt. Like I'll walk in the house in the early beginnings every single day, I look up, hey son, and I would talk to Pat, hey, what's up, I miss you. There was, like a stretch of a week where I'd walk in the house and, I didn't, physically look up to where the urn is, like, hey, what's up? But every once in a while I find myself just, instinctually, eyes, or automatically, eyes will, I know you're up there. Or when I hear something in the kitchen, who's out in the kitchen? Sometimes it's like, oh, 20 grandson, Julius. And it's like, yes. Sometimes it's not, who's in the kitchen? I don't hear anything. Patrick, settle down. Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, and again, it is just, like, I'm sorry, I don't, at that particular juncture, people, it's not that we don't want to be cheered up. It's not that we don't understand the intentions. It is understanding that having you here, having the companionship is comforting. I want to be able to, people need to be able to process.
You have to process where you're at, your feelings. Yeah, you have. Yeah. More facts about grief. Grief is healthy, normal response to the loss of something or someone you love. That grief feels bad doesn't make it bad. Grief is not an illness or a problem to be solved. And we've pretty much every book we have reviewed reiterates that.
Yeah, I like where, she also points out, and here is that, don't wait for like anniversary dates or whatnot, randomly, reach out to that person who, is grieving and say, hey, I want to let you know I'm thinking about you today. I think about now with, with Tammy and my other friend Tammy.
Oh, we do have a picture, I believe, of Tammy and Carson?
Carson. Rob, yeah, there it is.
There.
So yeah, that's my friend Tammy, and that is Carson, or Big Mop, as you can tell. And now, mind you, Carson was 16, when we lost him, and Tammy's about my height. But, like I said, looking at this picture, you can see, like, you're just the sweetest, individual. And, unfortunately, with this, it has forced, Tammy to, start speaking out about, this whole thing, because it was fentanyl. It was a, fentanyl-laced Percocet. But I find myself, reaching out to her, it's like, randomly, hey, let you know I'm thinking about you today. Mm-hmm. Or every once in a blue moon, I'll get like a random text message from Kira, hey, I just thought about you today. It's letting people know that you're there no matter what. Like, I'm here because I want to be. I'm not here because, it's an inconvenience, or it's convenient for me to be with you now. If you're reaching out to me, the only time you're talking to me is, oh, it's August, and we know that's a rough time. Oh, it's June, and that's his birthday, and, oh, it's February, and, we look at February, that's Aiden's birthday, and, the day, when we lost Aiden. Oh, it's this. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to appreciate it. I will love you for reaching out. At the same time, catch me when it's not those dark times.
Yeah.
It's not those shaky, crappy day, times.
Yeah, you got to be there at all times. At times when you wouldn't even think. Mm-hmm. That's when it's going to really mean the most. Because you're already dealing with it with the crappy times, so, and that's when people are going to be there. Be there when nobody's going to be there.
Well, I also look at, too, when we are reaching out to people during, the down times, the non-crappy times, some of us find comfort in that, what, I needed that, especially when they happen in the lead up to, either the lead up to or right after.
Right.
Those crunch times. It's like, I needed that.
Yeah.
I really needed that. So.
Yeah, and that's when it's going to mean the most.
Exactly.
So remember, we do have all the lifelines available, and please make sure that you have them, put them in your phones. The new 988 number, which rolled out in July, that is a call or text phone number. I'm going to change that up there for next time, put call or text. So just make sure you have them available, because you just don't know when you're going to need them, and don't be afraid to say something and use them. Mm-hmm. Just speak out.
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
So what do we have positive to
Awesome.
leave with? Our positive quote.
There are some who bring a light so great to the world that even after they're gone, the light remains. And I think this is true. For anybody. When I was looking, for the positive quote for today, what I loved about this one is it not only speaks to those that are gone, but it also, speaks about those that are still here. Like a family member coming in out of town. Eventually, you're on vacation, they have to go back home. And it's kind of like, that feeling, is there. Or, I think of in a long distance relationship, we're 2 hours away, But it's like, when they're separate, when we're separated by that distance and that time, it's like, you know what, I can carry that positive feeling with me even until, we get to see each other again. The same thing with, those that are lost. We'll always hold in our hearts what that person brought to us. Again, looking at the positive things from Tammy, reminding, what Carson was all about, and his spirit. You sharing about Bobby, me sharing about Patrick and Aiden. So the light is always there, and
Yep.
for us, remember.
So just remember, there's always hope.